So are you excited about hunting for a house?
I am excited.
Good, good. So what I want to do today is just kind of start off and give you a 30,000 foot view of how all these pieces work together and what we're going to do to make sure that we represent you and achieve all your goals throughout the process. So let's see. So I'm just going to kind of run through this program right here. And then I'm going to have a pack of information to give you when you leave, and after we're done today you'll be in complete position to move forward at whatever pace fits your schedule and your desires the best. So a little bit about us. Ness Brothers was started by my grandfather Joe Ness in 1961. We're three generations in the business. We have an office in Huntington and an office in Fort Wayne. And what we've done is that's a little bit different is we've taken this entire real estate process and broken it up into different sections so that, for instance, my job is to present the information and negotiate the contracts. I have a showing assistant, and what she does is shows all the properties because she's more available and more flexible to get you in the homes when they become available and to fit your schedule. And we've got a closing coordinator that once we have an offer negotiated, she's working with the lender, the surveyor, the title company, all these people behind the scenes to make sure we have a seamless transition from contract to close. So that's kind of why we're different. It's not just one person juggling all these different balls, and we found that we can provide the higher level of service by having people specialize. So this right here is kind of a summary of what we're going to do today. The strategy session is right now. We're going to talk about financing, the advantages, what we need to do, how we need to get that set up, how we're going to look for houses, what we'll do once we find the house, the research that I'll do on your behalf, negotiating the offer, what that purchase agreement looks like. Once we have an offer negotiated, how we're going to make sure you're protected with warranties, and then what's going to happen from that time the offer is accepted to closing, behind the scenes in that process. And then after closing, moving forward as your resource and some of the resources that we'll provide you post-closing. So first of all is the mortgage. We need to make sure we get you pre-approved because the advantages of being pre-approved are several. Number one, when we present an offer to a seller, we want to be able to show them that you've already met with a lender, we've got our financing taken care of, we know what we're working with, we're not just walking in off the street. It makes us a stronger buyer and allows us to negotiate a better contract on your behalf when the seller doesn't have to worry about that factor. Number two is we're going to help us determine exactly how much of a loan you can get and what those monthly payments are so it is comfortable for your financial budget. Number three, we're going to know exactly what our interest rate is going to be. And number four, we're going to know exactly what your closing costs are. Sometimes we might want to negotiate for the seller to pay your closing costs. So in order to do that, we really need to know exactly what those figures are. And then lastly, by having the financing taken care of ahead of time, it just reduces the stress and makes the whole process a little bit easier. There's less balls in the air that we have to keep an eye on, so the clients really appreciate knowing that that's taken care of. So those are the advantages of getting pre-approved. I always tell people if there's a lender that you like and you trust, let's use them. If you're not sure, I'd like to refer you to somebody that I know will do a really good job, as opposed to you just plucking a name out of a phone book or the internet. They might be good, they might not be good. I want to make sure that you're definitely hooked up with somebody that's going to do a really good job for you. The next part of the process is selecting the home. So the last thing we're going to do today is get that search set up to look for the right property. When you do find a home that you like with the search, you just let us know. We're going to get you out in the properties. We can look at 1 or 2 or 5 or 6 at a time, depending on what fits your schedule the best. Once we find that home that you like, what I'm going to do is the research on the property to make sure that we're negotiating the very best offer, such as how long has the home been on the market, have you done any price adjustments on the property, how long does the seller own the home. Oftentimes we can find out what the seller paid for the house, and most importantly, we want to really see how that home compares to other similar homes in the area that have recently sold, because we want to make sure this home isn't overpriced, and so that we can offer an amount that is appropriate for that property, in that marketplace. So that's the research we're going to do. If all those numbers look good, then the next step is to actually write up an offer on the property. So when we I'm back when we write up the offer on the property, this is an example of the purchase agreement. I'm just going to run through with you real quick. It's an 8-page contract, and I'm just going to highlight some of the bullet points. So first of all is the property address. This section here is where we can write in specifically what personal property goes with the real estate, such as refrigerator, stove, washer, dryer. Those aren't part of the real estate, they're personal property, but we can potentially negotiate for those to be included in the sale. We're going to write in what we want to offer the price to be, and then this is where we're going to fill in the earnest money that we're going to put down. The earnest money is a deposit on the house. Typically $1,000 is what you're looking at, and as long as the inspections go well and the financing goes well, that money just goes towards your purchase price. The only time that would be jeopardized would be is if everything is going fine and you just change your mind and say, Kyle, we want to walk away from the deal. If that were the case, and that money would go to reimburse the seller for that lost time on the market when they didn't sell to somebody else because they were under contract with us. But that's extremely rare. This section here is in regard to the financing. Our offer is contingent upon getting the financing with the terms that we dictate, which is why we need to be pre-approved. If something happened and we couldn't get the financing, or we couldn't get the type of financing that we wanted, we could walk away from the deal, keep the earnest money, and we'll be in good shape. So there's no jeopardy as long as we know what we're working with when it comes to the financing, which is why the pre-approval is important. Next is we'll dictate when we want closing to be. Typically 30 to 45 days is how long it takes a lender to process a loan. And then possession may be at closing, or it may be a few days after closing, depending on the seller's personal situation, their moving constraints, etc. I'm not going to get into a lot of nitty-gritty. I'm just going to kind of hit the highlights. The next is the offer will be contingent upon inspections. We're always going to reserve the right to do inspections on the property. This is looking for any major defects with the house, which is anything that would significantly deteriorate the home, significantly devalue the home, or jeopardize health and safety. If the home had any major defects, then we'll go back to the seller and we'll say, Mr. Seller, we want you to fix it. If the seller says, yes, we will, everything keeps moving forward. If the seller says, no, I'm not going to fix it, then we can choose to walk away from the deal. We keep the earnest money, we can just bail, or we might say, hey, we'll still buy it, but we want to reduce the price or negotiate some other terms. You're never going to be in a position where you're forced to move forward on a home with major defects that aren't being addressed and corrected to your satisfaction. So I'm going to make sure that that happens. We're also going to make sure that you get a home warranty on the property, which I'm going to come back to in a little bit more detail. And then when we write up our offer, we're typically going to give an expiration. Let's see if I can get to the right page. Which is when this offer expires, which is usually 24 to 48 hours later, depending on the situation. And then lastly, you'll just put your name. Now, the seller can accept the offer, which means we're good, we're locked in, or they can reject the offer, which means they're just saying no, we're not out anything, they don't get the earnest money or anything like that, or they can give us a counter offer. Now, if they give us a counter offer, it's essentially saying everything in your offer is acceptable except for what they're explicitly changing, for instance, the price or the personal property. So typically you write an offer with all these different elements to it, they counter back maybe a few of them, and then you might accept or counter back to them a few less. So typically you start off with this many items, then you're discussing this many items, and then this many items. So as things progress, the two parties are coming closer and closer together. So that's an example of the purchase agreement. The next form, this is the lead-based paint form. The federal government requires we give you this pamphlet. Basically just says any home built before 1978 could have lead-based paint. You just don't want to inhale that or eat paint chips or get them into your system. And then this form is the agency disclosure. This is a disclosure saying that I represent you and you exclusively through this process. I'm an agent of the buyer. Now, if we were representing the seller also, we'd be a limited agent, which basically means we're the referee instead of the coach. You can't be on one side or the other. It's kind of like a neutral party. It doesn't happen very often. Auctions would be another type of agency, but rarely will you run into that situation. Ness Brothers, the owners of Ness Brothers have an affiliation with Lime City Title. This is an affiliated business disclosure. Sometimes we use Lime City Title, sometimes we don't. The prices are competitive like everybody else. So that just states their ownership interest. There's $245 transaction fee. And we have to offer everybody an opportunity for the home warranty. We're going to make sure that you get the home warranty. The next portion here is more specifically, once we have that offer, making sure you're protected. So speaking of the home warranty, I've included some information here on a home warranty. This is going to cover the plumbing, heating, electrical, appliances, and air conditioning on the property for 1 year after you buy it. Now, we're going to have the seller pay for this, and it's going to be $100 deductible. So if your furnace goes out, you call the home warranty company, then they send out a technician, you pay the $100 trip charge, and they pay the rest of it. And also, we're going to make sure when you get a home inspection, there's also some additional warranties that will be included there. Here's more information on our home inspector that we recommend. He also does a free pest inspection for like wood destroying insects, so that's a huge benefit as well. Kind of touched on inspections and warranties, of course. Then once we have that offer negotiated, then it's a point from that point to closing. We're going to be working with all these people behind the scenes to make sure that the taxes are paid, there's no liens on the property, the association dues, if there would be any, are all current. We're going to make sure all of that's protected. So there's a lot of behind the scenes work once we get through the home inspections, when you do your loan application, but we'll keep you informed on how that's going, but it really doesn't require a whole lot out of you. So that's kind of nice. And then we show up to closing. That's when the lender will forward all the money to the title company. We'll come together. It takes 30 to 60 minutes. It'll be me, you, the seller, their agent, the title company. Sometimes the lender is there as well. We just get together and sign documents. So it's pretty low key and pretty easy. We'll make sure we review all documents well before even coming to the closing table. So by the time we get to the closing table, everything's been done. It's just a matter of putting our name on paper, and that's really all there is to it. Then, let's see. After closing, we're going to be here for you to make sure that if you have any questions, any concerns, if you need any connections or referrals, any contractors, we're going to be your resource. We've been in business for almost 60 years, over 3 generations. We're going to continue to stay in business and make sure that we're in touch, and we're here to help you out after the deal is done. Then, lastly, as you go through this process and you're looking for a home, undoubtedly you're going to have people that initiate conversations with you about buying a home or real estate. It'll come up because it always does. What we want to do is we want to do such a good job helping educate, helping navigate this process with you, helping communicate with you what's going on, so that when those conversations do develop, that you feel comfortable and confident referring those people to us. Referrals from people like you are the lifeblood of our business, and when our clients and past clients can refer business to us, it helps us provide a higher level of service, because I don't have to worry and spend as much time trying to procure the next deal when my clients are sending their friends and family to me. So what I ask is that when those conversations develop and those people are thinking about real estate, if you feel comfortable and confident with our services, would you be willing to take the initiative to refer them to us? That's all that we ask. So what we're going to do now is set up the search on your property. But before I do that, I just want to touch on and make sure you understand how we get paid through this process. So the seller pays my fee. So what happens is when you buy a home, the seller pays their agent, and then their agent splits that commission with me. So as we go through this whole process, we educate you, we set the search up, we show you the houses, we do the research. All that we ask is that if you decide to buy a home, you don't have to buy a home, but if you do decide to buy a home, that you let us continue to represent you through that process, so that we can be compensated for the time and energy and the money we're spending helping you navigate that process and go down that road. So this last form here is a buyer loyalty agreement, and basically what it says, it outlines specifically all the things that we've talked about today, and it just says, if you're not comfortable working with us, all that I ask you to do is let me know. Because if you don't want to work with me, that's okay. I just want to stop spinning my wheels and spending my time. We can both, depart as friends and not have any animosity over miscommunication. So this form right here says, I'm going to take care of all these things we just talked about. If you see a home that you want to look at, you allow me to show it to you. And in return, we're going to make sure that you get the home warranty on your home at no cost to you. We're going to offer this cancellation agreement. So if you choose to stop working with us, you can at any point, just letting us know. And then if you should decide that you want to sell this home within 12 months, we'll sell it for free, meaning that you will not have to pay my fee. You're still going to have all the other typical fees with transacting real estate as a seller, but my portion of that will be free as a service to you. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay. All I'm going to have to do is put your name here, and we've got copies in your folder, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get in the MLS. We're going to talk more about getting your search set up so you have access to all the homes in the market that match your specific criteria.